Mulhenny with Houlihan here. I'm a managing director in our Aerospace Defense and Government Services Industry Group. Today, I have the distinct pleasure to introduce to you Reid from Kraken Robotics. Greg is a longtime technology and maritime executive and has been the COO of Kraken Robotics since 2015. Kraken Robotics is a marine technology company that provides software-centric sensors, subsea batteries, and thrusters, and underwater robotic systems to customers worldwide. Greg has been deeply involved in driving Kraken's strategy and has a really great story to tell today about how the company is delivering disruptive technologies and solutions to both commercial and military customers worldwide. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Greg. Greg?
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate the introduction, and we appreciate the invite to the conference. I'll flip through the slide deck here, but as Mike mentioned, we are a underwater robotics company providing sensors and systems predominantly to the defense industry, but also to the commercial industry as well. And I'll try not to use too many acronyms, but just on the front page, you can see two engineering renderings of two products that we have. On the left-hand side is a product called Catfish. On the right-hand side is a product called Thunderfish. The Catfish is a product that is used in the military for underwater mine hunting. We sell this product, the Catfish itself, along with the associated topside equipment and launch and recovery equipment. Pricing could range for between $2 and $5 million per unit. And this, as we'll get into in the presentation, this is really the key driver of the company's revenues and profits going forward here in the near term. So that's a product sale. On the right-hand side, Thunderfish, that is an underwater drone that can go full ocean depth, so it can go down 6,000 meters. It has our Kraken's own sensors, so sonar and lasers on it, as well as Kraken's own batteries and thrusters and all of our software. Unlike the Catfish, for the Thunderfish, we're going to use that in a service offering as opposed to selling them on a product basis. So moving ahead a couple slides here, the forward-looking statements on slide 2. Corporate overview, what is our technology used for? It's really for a variety of underwater activities such as seafloor mapping, inspection of critical underwater infrastructure, and really, being able to find small objects on the ocean floor in very high resolution. The picture on the right is an acoustic image, actually. So it's a sonar image of a shipwreck in very high detail. And our key technology is called synthetic aperture sonar. There's only a handful of companies in the world that have synthetic aperture sonar capability, and it's really what differentiates us from the conventional sonar market. We're roughly a 10-year-old company. We've sold to more than 10 different countries, leading navies, both in North America and in Europe and the Middle East. And we're about 150 employees with offices both in Canada, where we're headquartered, as well as in the US and several offices in Europe. For 2021, the current calendar year that we're in, we will more than double our revenues organically, and we'll get into some detail of what is driving that here in a few minutes. And as well, a key part of the Kraken story is we're just in the final stages of finalizing an acquisition of a company that accelerates our recurring service revenue part of the business. And that's a company called Pangeo, which we'll talk to a little bit more here in a few seconds. The management team and the technical team, the board of directors, we have significant experience in the underwater domain. Of the 150 employees we have today, probably about 65% or so of those are engineering, software, science, and data processing people. The final comment I'll make here is about the domain that we play in. So we're in the underwater space. There's high corrosion, there's crushing pressures, there's very limited to no communications. Simply putting our equipment to the bottom of the ocean is more challenging than it is to put technology in outer space. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do about the depths of our ocean, and very little of our ocean has been mapped in high definition. So that's a short way of saying that we're in an industry with high barriers to entry and a lot of growth potential ahead of it. Next slide, on slide 4 here, we talk about unprecedented growth opportunities. Sorry, I just lost my screen. Slide 4, we're talking about unprecedented growth opportunities. This slide shows a combination of the markets we play in as well as the products that we offer today. So on the left side, we have an Aquapix is our brand name, our synthetic aperture sonar. That is a SAS acoustic sensor that gets integrated onto both our underwater vehicles as well as other customers' underwater vehicles. And that's really had been the key basis of the company since it was started. The C-Vision laser scanner is a product developed out of our German group along with our Canadian group. It is used for scanning subsea infrastructure in very high resolution detail, ultimately to be able to improve inspection and maintenance capabilities of subsea infrastructure, as well as to get into things like predictive analytics, which allows for predictive maintenance of a variety of underwater assets. In the middle, you see our two key platforms that we've developed, both the Catfish and the Thunderfish. As I mentioned earlier, we also provide subsea batteries, which are differentiated in the market. And on the right-hand side, what you see there is a picture of a overboarding frame or a piece of launch and recovery equipment to put these underwater vehicles into the water and take them out of the water. Below, you'll see the military and the commercial breakdowns of the various market segments. I would note that on the military side, it is mainly a product market focus. So we sell product into that market, predominantly into the mine countermeasures market. On the commercial side of the business, it's the flip-flop. These companies don't want to buy a $2 million or $3 million piece of equipment from us. They would rather us provide the full service offering to them. And you can see there's a variety of end market applications, everything from cable and pipeline surveys to offshore wind related work, which is a key driver of that service market, as well as some new markets which we're just starting to hear about, such as seafloor mineral exploration. Slide 5 is really just a one-page overview of our strategy, highlighting that in 2012 we started out as a sensor company. And as we've evolved the business over time, we've added key pieces of technology which were essential to be differentiated in the market, as well as to really control our own overall bill of materials costs. In platforms, we've evolved from a sensor company to a platform company. I mentioned the Catfish. That was really the result of the Israelis coming to us in 2015 and asking us to develop a complete system around our sonar. And we had first commercial sales of that in 2018. However, all along, we've been putting together the key technology pieces with the ultimate goal of driving a more recurring service business, which we call robotics as a service, or RAS. So I'll take a few minutes here to talk about our products. Slide 6, Kraken Products. Slide 7. Synthetic aperture sonar technology, as I mentioned earlier, is really the key basis for the company. What you see here in various pictures, you can't see it on the screen, but you would be able to, a normal operator or customer looking at this data would be able to zoom in. And in this case, you can see a picture of an oil field, the flow lines and riser bases associated with the oil field. And you'd be able to zoom in and see the very high detail of concrete mats that are holding down some of these lines. So it's very high resolution data. The analogy is, you're looking at ultra high resolution 4K through sonar technology, as opposed to black and white TV from, the 1970s. Ultimately, what customers care about as they're out there surveying this offshore equipment is they want to get out there, they want to capture the data as fast as possible in high resolution. And so a key metric is area coverage rate, and that's where we really excel. So if I point out at the bottom of the differentiation between our technology and conventional sonar technology. These are a couple of abandoned cars in the ocean floor, on the ocean floor. They're both at the same distance from the underwater vehicle that was taking the sonar image of them. On the left side is our SAS technology, showing it at 3 centimeter resolution. On the right-hand side, using conventional technology, you can see it's a completely different picture, so 20 centimeter resolution. So that's our SAS technology, which forms the basis of our key revenue drivers. On the right-hand side is our laser inspection tool. We have a number of applications for this, but the low-hanging would really be the inspection of mooring chains, the inspection of ship hulls, and the inspection of offshore wind infrastructure. And the color-coded mooring chain example, the 3D rendering you can see in the top there, that is an example of corrosion analysis. So whether you're an offshore oil and gas operator or an offshore wind operator and you want to know how your subsea infrastructure is changing over time and what the corrosion is, you can use tools like ours, which is much more advanced than conventional technology. Page 8 is the Catfish. I mentioned this as a key revenue driver. We sell these for between $2 and $5 million. I'll talk about our customer pipeline in a few minutes here, but the Catfish is really the key driver and a key component of a number of foreign Navy bids that are quite sizable. As I said, we've been developing this for a number of years and had first commercial sales a couple of years ago. We've integrated it and demonstrated on 10 different, both regular manned vessels and unmanned vessels. In the top right corner there, you see a picture of it on of an Israeli drone boat. And on the left-hand side, you see it is on a regular manned vessel. So we've done activity in the US with a bunch of demonstrations as well. And results so far have been very positive, and I'll talk to that a little bit further here. The point in this slide is really to talk about what on slide number 9 is to talk about us selling our sensors on other people's platforms. And we believe we're the world leaders in selling synthetic aperture sonar onto other companies' platforms. We've done more than 20 different AUV and remotely operated vehicle platforms. And there's some pictures at the bottom of the page to give you a sense of who some of these customers are. The left in the bottom left is the orange Hugin vehicle, which comes from a company called Kongsberg, who's the big Norwegian player in the industry. Below them is Hydroid, who's probably sell the most underwater vehicles to the US Navy of any supplier. Hydroid used to be owned by Kongsberg and was sold to Huntington Ingalls in the last year or two. Teledyne is the yellow torpedo in the middle that uses our technology. And then others are US, German, and Lockheed Martin on the right-hand side, on the bottom right-hand side. So the other thing to point out is whether these are vehicles that are 4 feet in diameter or 12 inches or less in diameter, we've sold and integrated onto a bunch of these various platforms. And there's a large opportunity of continuing to sell our sensors, which range from anywhere from $200,000 to $600,000 into these various customers. Subsidy Power on slide 10. Just highlight here, this is a business we got into in the last 3 years. We acquired a company out of Germany that was part of a larger company that had gone bankrupt, and we picked up some assets on the cheap and have really refocused the team there. We've done almost 16 million in battery contracts in the last 2 years there. Predominantly to one company called Ocean Infinity, who happened to be a partial shareholder of Kraken, and as well as a number of defense contractors as well, both predominantly in the US. This morning or this month, we put out a press release talking about how we've entered into an agreement with the US Navy to test our batteries and work towards a a certification called NAVSEA battery certification, which we hope will drive further sales into U.S. defense contractors and the U.S. Navy. I would like to point out here that while these are lithium-ion batteries, the real key differentiator of what we bring to the table is our gel, our pressure-tolerant gel encapsulation technology. So it's not, it's not the chemistry of our lithium-ion cells versus somebody else. It's really how we package it. And to use Ocean Infinity as an example, when they removed the batteries from their existing vehicles and put our batteries in there in the same footprint, they were getting more than 50% increase in the amount of time that they could stay underwater. So this is a good revenue driver part of our business, and it's a key part of our overall portfolio. So now let's get into our current backlog and our pipeline. Really, on the left-hand side there, you can see a picture of our Catfish on the bottom of, attached to the back of our vessel called the Ocean Seeker. This is the technology that was part of some recent contract wins we had at the end of last year. Roughly $40 million in value to the Danish Navy and to the Polish Navy. And really what that was, it was an upgrade of their mine hunting equipment. So it was an extensive due diligence by the Danish Navy on this front. They narrowed down the potential suppliers, and ultimately in the end, we had three main competitors listed there: Northrop Grumman, Thales, which is a large French defense contractor, and Klein, which is a US Australian company. So we were successful on that contract, and we're currently this year and next year delivering that equipment to those navies. And then following that with the Danish Navy, we'll have a 7-year service-related contract associated with that, with an option for another 7 years. So that really highlights opportunities in our pipeline. So on the right-hand side of the page, I show 250 million plus of product opportunity pipelines, and just like the Danish Navy, the demand drivers are the same. You've got navies with fleets of aging equipment that needs to be updated. You've got increasing geopolitical tensions in a number of areas of the world, everything from the Arctic to the South China Sea to the Middle East. And as a result, that's driving equipment and upgrade sales into these navies. And as I noted on the Danish Navy opportunity, we were one of a handful of competitors in the end, and we expect that we will win our fair share of business going forward against these competitors as well. So, how many of these Danish Navy type opportunities are out there? There's a fair number, and there's a lot more than there was 3-4 years ago. So things are moving in the right direction. So that's Catfish, which will be a key driver. In addition, both the US and other NATO countries just selling our individual sensors onto their underwater vehicles. There's a number of programs of record which have moved from the RFI to the request for proposal phase, which are, will get awarded over the coming year here. And we're on a number of bid teams, so we expect that we'll be successful on several fronts there. Now, so everything I've mentioned so far really relates to our product-related business. Now I want to switch gears here and talk about robotics as a service, or the service business. As I mentioned previously, this is not so much focused on the defense market, but more on the commercial market. And we are addressing that market both organically and through an acquisition company called Pangeo. For a little bit of background, we've clearly been maturing our technology over the last 5, 6, 7 years, with the ultimate goal, as I mentioned earlier, to be offering a service capability. And in the last 2 years, we were part of a $20 million project in Canada called Ocean Vision, which was taking our technology and doing a range of tests and evaluations and demos with a bunch of partners in the commercial world. Everyone from the offshore oil and gas industry to the fisheries to companies that operate subsea power cables to research institutes, etc. So So where we sit today, we have about a year left on that project, and we are starting to roll out our robotics as a service offering. So you'll hear about contract wins over the coming 12 months. As I'll highlight on the next page, we're building a team, and we do have a number of assets to put to use already with that team. And then a key other driver of this business is really about integrating the Pangeo acquisition, which we'll talk about here in a second. But the most important part about Pangeo, besides their technology, is Kraken is a little bit wet behind the ears in terms of a service capability, and Pangeo brings all that established contracting and operating processes and discipline to be able to run 24-hour operations offshore in tough conditions for a number of weeks. So that's one of the key value adds of that acquisition. Slide number, oops, sorry about that. On the next slide, slide number 14, this is just an example of the technology that we have today that we will use in our service offering. So we have a Catfish in our own internal fleet. We have a number of AUVs, or underwater drones. The one with the orange on it is a small man-portable AUV, which comes from a company called Riptide, which is now owned by BAE. The red underwater vehicle at the bottom, that is a 4-foot diameter underwater vehicle by a US company called Dive Technologies. This is a really good team. They're ex-Bluefin Robotics / General Dynamics out of Boston. And they provided the vehicle, and we have our batteries and sonar technology on that. And of course, on the right-hand bottom side, you'll see the Thunderfish vehicle, which is our own internal development, which will be commercialized next year. So this kit is available, and we're out there bidding on jobs and expect to start to drive service revenues using this particular kit. Slide 15, the next slide, is really an overview of Pangeo. Pangeo, roughly 50 employees in Canada, the US, and the UK, based out of Aberdeen, Scotland. They have a 10+ year history of delivering offshore survey capabilities to the oil and gas industry, the offshore wind industry, and other players. The technology is a bit different from Kraken. While they are synthetic aperture sonar acoustic technology as well, their technology allows customers to see sub-seabed, so think of buried objects, versus Kraken technology does not penetrate into the seabed, so it's for use to find things that are on the seabed. Pangeo's technology, if you think about the end market applications, what the customers are using it for, whether you're building an offshore wind farm or an offshore oil and gas platform, there's a range of pre-construction and construction activities, and then post-construction activities throughout the operations and maintenance life cycle of the project. And Pangeo's technology is used to provide imaging of buried cables, buried pipelines, and buried what's called UXOs, or unexploded ordnances. So in Europe, that's a big issue when you're building these offshore wind farms. There's a lot of leftover UXOs from the Second World War in the waters off there. And now as things start to move into the US market as well, you're starting to see some of those same capabilities required. Okay, I think two other points I just want to highlight on this particular slide is that Pangeo has worked in the European market for a number of years with some of the large wind developers and wind operators there. And it's those same wind developers that are now some of the leading companies that will be involved in the US offshore wind market, as well as the Asian offshore wind market. And as they go into those other geographies, Pangeo is being brought along with those customers. Now, Pangeo, like ourselves, we're not going to be in the business of owning these huge offshore supply vessels, which is a very capital-intensive business. We provide some niche technology, which is part of the overall scope of work on these service jobs. And as such, we are kind of like call it an arms merchant or supplier into these to these bigger survey companies. The companies like the DOF Subseas of the world, the Fugros of the world. So Pangeo has worked with them in the past, and that will continue going forward. I do want to highlight the offshore wind market because we were just talking about it, and in Europe, everybody is very familiar with how much activity is going on. I'm not sure south of the Canadian border or even in Canada how much people are aware of offshore wind activity. To put it in context, at the end of 2020, there was roughly 32 gigawatts of global offshore wind, of which 20 of that was in Europe. If you look at the US market, it was basically zero, so less than 50 megawatts. Now, what's the expectation over the next 10, 20 years? The US is expected by the end of the decade to go from nothing to almost 30 gigawatts over the next 9 years. And if you look at the European market, it's expected to go from 32 gigawatts to grow more than 10 times, almost 15 times over the next 30 years. So lots of activity in all geographies, and as a service company, both on the pre-construction and the post-construction side, Pangeo and ourselves are well positioned to capture some growth there. So that's really a summary of the company and the Pangeo acquisition. I want to highlight just the five or six key investor takeaways here. And I mentioned at the beginning, really, we're in an industry with high barriers to entry because it's a tough environment to operate in. And we've been doing it for a while. And once you get your foot in the door and prove yourself, there's usually a lot of runway there to succeed. That high barriers to entry results in pretty solid margins. So our overall business margin, our overall margins for the business, our target margin is about 30% EBITDA margins. We've touched close to that in the past, but we're really, we're ramping the company and have put a number of new investments in place. So we expect to get back there as we put our two companies together and continue to grow. From the demand side, I've mentioned earlier that the mine hunting industry is really in the early stages of an industry upgrade cycle. So we expect that to drive a lot of our growth. Highlighted that we have a backlog of more than $50 million, which will drive our revenues both this year and next year. And I also highlighted a large number of contract pursuits, which we expect will win our fair share of, and that's on the product side. The recurring revenue piece, that's really a result of building out our RAS business, and our Pangeo acquisition goes a long way to help accelerating that. And the other point we always like to mention to investors is that we're aligned with investors, insiders, management almost 30%. And then one of our customers is a company called Ocean Infinity. They own about 13%. And Ocean Infinity is an emerging and significant player in the offshore survey market as well. And if you've never heard of them before, you should Google them and check them out as well. And with that, I think that is everything. Thank you for your time.
We're back for a question and answer session. Thank you again for a really great presentation. We do have a couple of questions that have come across, so let's get started. Greg, the first question is related to your growth strategy. Can you talk a bit about where you see the greatest growth opportunities for the company? Obviously a lot of work being done on the RAS side. Product strategy is in full force. Recent Pangeo acquisition should change the name of the game from a services perspective. But how do you think about growth and where those opportunities lie?
Thanks, Mike. I would say a couple things. If we think about the defense market, our Catfish product and mine hunting and that whole upgrade cycle will be a key driver of revenues and growth opportunity for the business. In addition to that, there's a large, there's definitely an increasing and large number of new programs that are coming on both in the U.S. Navy and international navies, where they have the navies go for a number of AUVs, underwater vehicles, from other suppliers, and we will sell our sensors into those suppliers. So whether it's a small underwater vehicle, a medium size, or a large or extra large size vehicle, and they range everything from a two-man portable vehicle which weighs maybe 100 pounds or so to Boeing's Echo Voyager, which is the size of a small submarine. All these underwater vehicles are looking for sensors like our technology, and we are on multiple bid teams across a number of those programs, with really only a handful of competitors. So we expect that to be a key driver of the business. So that's military. On the commercial side of the business, yeah, it's really focused on robotics as a service and being able to provide industry-leading technology as well as a team to go out and capture the data and process the data and provide a complete package to the end customer. That's really what it's all about.
Excellent. Appreciate that. On a related note, Greg, obviously Kraken is a fairly small company that's competing head-on with some of the largest defense and industrial conglomerates worldwide. Given the limited resources and priorities that you have, how do you plan to be successful in the markets that you serve? What do you view as your key competitive differentiators?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very valid question, because I've highlighted, we compete against the Northrop Grummans of the world and the Thaleses of the world and the Raytheons of the world. And so us, it's about innovation to stay ahead. And as I mentioned, we're 150 employees today. We have, I think the number's around 10 PhDs. We're very high on the science side, the R&D side. And we really look at some of those big competitors. A lot of times they're system integrators. So, we've had cases where one of those big companies is competing against us in a certain area, and then they're also coming to us to buy our technology in other areas. So we think that will continue, and we think we really lead with technology and innovation. The other point to highlight is when you peel back the layers of the onion skin, to use that analogy, as we compete against some of these big companies, the niche area that we compete in, while they might be a 10,000 employee company, they're probably a 200 employee group that competes against us, and we're 150 people today. It's very important to point out that our team, our average age is probably between 35 and 40. There's a fair amount of gray hair as well, but we've been great at bringing in new people and training them. And some of these large defense contractors have what's referred to as skill fade. A lot of their senior science people and quality people are starting to exit the industry due to retirement. So we're small and we're scrappy, and we're focused on a niche where we think we've got a competitive advantage, and we just happen to be in the niche which is starting to see a significant upgrade cycle.
Terrific. That's very helpful. The Pangeo acquisition, which you mentioned, it certainly appears to be a great fit. Can you talk a bit more about how this complements your existing business, which tends to be a bit more hardware and software centric?
Yeah, so it's you're right. The existing business is more hardware centric, but there's also, as we are out there selling product and we're out there testing our equipment in the field, we're capturing the data, we're processing the data. So there's this feedback loop. So a couple things on the service side, actually having our own service fleet with this capability, generates good revenues, and it's a fragmented market. And we think we'll see good growth there. But we also have this constant feedback loop now within our product group, which allows us to continue to innovate and work out the kinks on things. And it can only be beneficial to the company overall. The services business for Pangeo and Kraken services business as well as we grow it, it's using the equipment, but a lot of the value add is on the data processing side and the software side, as well as whether it's a geoscientist or a sonar scientist that is reviewing the data. And we have that capability in-house. So the two parts of the business, we do see lots of synergies between them.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. And I'm sure there are more questions, but Greg, we're mindful of your time, that you have a business to run. Fantastic presentation. It's certainly a really exciting time for Kraken Robotics, and you guys are incredibly well positioned for enduring success. So Greg, thanks again. Really appreciate the presentation.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the invite and the time.
Excellent.